A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up a high mountain apart from themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no fuller on earth could bleach them. Then Elijah appeared to them along with Moses, and they were conversing with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, "Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He hardly knew what to say. They were so terrified. Then a cloud came, casting a shadow over them. From the cloud came a voice. "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." Suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone but Jesus alone with them. As they were coming down the mountain, he charged them not to relate what they had seen to anyone, except when the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what rising from the dead meant. The Gospel of the Lord. This morning I'm going to focus on the Old Testament reading because I think it has a message for us in our own lives. As a story, like all art, it doesn't have just one interpretation. It lives in a creative way in the people who listen to or read it. So I offer you my reflection. You can transform it into your own. Well, the story begins simply. God tested Abraham. Well, I ask, why? This story of the sacrifice of Isaac is about faith. Yet God had already tested Abraham earlier, saying to him, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you." Well, Abraham was not a young adventurer. The text tells us that at that time Abraham was 75, a senior citizen. But he went into the unknown. That's a pretty heavy test. In today's first reading from Genesis, his faith is tested again. God asks him to take a leap of faith and to embrace the promise that he and his posterity would become a great nation. Isaac is the child of that promise. And God tells him to sacrifice the child. And it would seem the promise too. Well, this time, his choice to be obedient to God seems incomprehensible. But Abraham is our father in faith, and he appears to believe that God's promise is stronger than his own limited vision. The New Testament letter to the Hebrews, which used to be attributed to St. Paul, says, "Faith is the assurance of things hoped for but unseen." Abraham trusts God, even in the shadow of the certain death of the promise. Well, step into the story yourself and take Abraham's place. If you're a parent, how could you comprehend killing one of your children? The power of Abraham's faith alone can provide a means to accepting his choosing to obey. The mystery cannot be understood. It can only be entered into through the heart. The mind will fail at the threshold of mystery, but not the heart. Well, to dig deeper, just who or what is Abraham going to sacrifice? Is it simply his son Isaac and his hope in the promise? Or is it the very meaning of his own life? Let me quote from John's Gospel. Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. If Abraham is dying to the meaning of his life, what is that going to give birth to? Reflecting on the strength of my own faith, with my knees wobbling, I ask, can I take the leap of faith into a darkness that challenges what I thought was my purpose in life? In his first letter to the Corinthians, St. Paul writes, "No eye has seen nor ear heard, nor the human heart conceived, what God has prepared for those who love him." The Old Testament tradition says that when sacrificing an offering on the altar, the worshiper is to give not a lame lamb, but the best of the flock. Considering this, what in your own mind and heart represents the best of your flock? Are you prepared to give it up? How does your faith support you in what you believe is God's promise to you? What, through your Christian faith, do you most desire? I've spent time on the first reading from the Old Testament, the sacrifice of Isaac, because I think it offers guidance on how to make choices in our own lives, in our own time. Our society is confronted with critical challenges which impact our personal lives. Faith and sacrifice face off. Where is the assurance of things hoped for but unseen? The transfiguration scene in the gospel gives us Jesus transformed into a nearly blinding light. On the mountain with him are Moses and Elijah. Moses is the lawgiver, and Elijah represents the prophets. The whole Old Testament points to Jesus, the sacrificial lamb who redeems the world. Unlike Isaac, he doesn't get a substitute. Is he that lamb caught in the thicket to substitute for Isaac? Their appearance to the overwhelmed apostles proclaims what Abraham could not have imagined. St. Paul's quote I gave a few moments ago can reflect on God's promise to him and to us. No eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the human heart conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. The Transfiguration places the promise at our feet. Our faith is born out of Abraham's faith in the promise. What do I do? What do you want to do with the promise?